Hello and welcome to this week's episode of my series When I Feel at IDAGIO Live. I'm very happy to welcome my friend Nikolaus Bachler, who joins me today for the first time.
Hello.
And today we'll talk about a topic that I think means a lot to me, I think means a lot to other people, I think to you too, which is loneliness. And we'll get through that to Schubert. And my first question is loneliness a condition or is it a feeling?
It depends. For sure it's a feeling, but it can be a condition and it can be both. But I think what we are talking about and what we are thinking about all the time about in music, in literature, theater, is about the feeling. Because this has a lot of influence on our life, on our thinking, on our feelings, and especially on the arts.
And is it a feeling that is directly influenced for you by a condition? Or is it completely independent of let's say, objective conditions around it?
Also depends. It can be both. I think the strong feeling, what we really mean with a beautiful German word with Einsamkeit, is like a direct feeling. I think the more you confess it and the more you let it go, the deeper you go. And the more you come to various branches of human life.
But if we think of Einsamkeit as in a way, a form of solitude, it's a feeling that the more you fight against it and the deeper you go against it, actually the more you sort of dig yourself into it. So in a way, it's a feeling that the moment you let go of the wish to remove it, it's the moment when you actually accept it, and therefore it goes to the next step. So would you say that it always, so if we think about it, I mean, we don't feel necessarily less lonely when there's more people around us. And it's actually a feeling that is completely independent on what social circumstance we're in. Is it a spiritual situation then, or is it an emotional situation?
I think the emotional situation becomes a spiritual situation.
Okay.
But fighting against, I think it's a secret in all the feelings of life, that if you stop fighting against, you get the benefit.
Yeah, of course.
And if you fight against, you will diminish it, and you will only get the negative sides. Because only in saying yes to a certain feeling, if it's pain, if it's joy, whatever it is, I think you really can get into it and you can experience what comes to your soul.
So it's in a way, it's a little bit like melancholia in a way, that it's the moment only you accept it is the moment you're in the feeling, because if you fight against it, then it's already way much more a struggle than it is actually a feeling, a condition that is movement.
Exactly, because the miracle of it's always about being in the moment.
Yeah.
And if you are in the moment of loneliness, I think you will find a vast territory what you can discover.
And is pain a source of energy? If you feel pain through sadness, through loneliness, through solitude, is it a source of energy, or is it a condition that is stable that you can be in?
I think also it can become energy if you have courage.
Courage to go into the feeling?
Courage to go into, yeah. Also courage to go into the pain. We know going to the dentist, it's a very simple situation. You go to the dentist and you feel the pain if it goes into your tooth. And suddenly if you let loose, the pain can get pleasure.
Of course, I mean, pain and pleasure are also very close in any way. But the thing is, when you go to the dentist, you always know how it's going to end. In a sense, you always know there is a happy end at the end. It'll finish, and you will most likely not die. Whereas the emotional pain feels to us every time anew as something we've never experienced before, and it seems bears with it the risk that it could be a new dimension of suffering that we haven't experienced. We don't know how it's going to go on.
Maybe because if you're young, yes. If you're older, it's also ending. It's exactly like at the dentist. Just wait.
It'll be over. Everything will be over.
Everything is over anyway, and the good thing, and there we are in the pure Schubert land and in the melancholy. You have to know that in the end you are free.
But this is what I want to say. Actually, with loneliness, it's exactly the opposite, because we know it will never end. Because we know that ultimately we're always alone.
Yes.
And this is also a feeling that once you realize that, you actually completely overcome loneliness. because you don't try to fight it, you just accept that it is always there.
Yes, but this is now a very philosophical topic, because being alone in general, like we come to the earth alone and we live alone,
Yeah.
is we are alone.
Mm.
But this is like this is not the human condition, because the human condition is that we are with people and we're social human beings. But there is a kind of loneliness, or you can also call it, it's a kind of identity, or it's yourself.
Yeah.
That means, yes, you are with yourself.
Yeah, ultimately, you always come back to yourself. Yes. And in a sense, if we think about music, I mean, music somehow makes you feel closer to yourself than anything, at least for me, than anything else in life. And it's in a way the moment where I'm most lonely and at the same time, actually, most in harmony with myself. And I mean, sometimes I think of it as something that is spiritual in the sense that it brings me closer to a higher existence of some sort. And sometimes I think that in a way it's because I don't expect any sort of input. I am completely in, I mean, I am sort of in a circle in a sense. That's how that, which is why I always wonder whether loneliness is something, because we always feel the need, I mean, social contacts or let's say bonds with people are a need that we have as a human being, and we will always have. Yet at the same time, they never remove the basic feeling of being alone.
Yeah, but I think that's the difference of reading a book and listening to music. Because reading a book is somehow social. And
even if it's in your fantasy.
Even if it's fantasy, especially when it's fantasy, especially because no movie, no theater can give you more fantasy than a book.
Of course.
That's why
you create your own movie.
Yeah, because that's why it's very disappointing if you read The Great Gatsby and then you see The Great Gatsby, because it's diminishing.
Of course. Which is why you never watch a movie of a book you love,
for example. But if you listen to music, it's really going to yourself. If we talk about Schubert, if we talk about string quartet, or if we talk about one even more, I think, with his songs, you really get to yourself.
I mean, because of course in the book there's always a story. In the moment it's a story, it goes through your head to your stomach first. Because whenever you digest something that has to do with people, with feelings, with words, it's always first of all a cognitive process, and then it becomes a feeling. Whereas with music, I think it goes through the stomach first and then goes to the head.
That's why I say this. So I explain always the difference of theater and opera. I always say it's the way in theater, it's the way brain, and if it's good, it goes to the feeling. And opera, it's really the other. It always goes to the feeling, but if it's very good, it goes also to the
Exactly. But at the same time, you could say that it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. Any sound will first of all affect you on a physical level. And if it's good,
it's waves.
Well, yes, but at the same time, you could say, I mean, a picture is also waves. If you were to watch a movie, at the same time, still, it's a story about people, and it always involves our social thinking, it involves our psychological thinking, that we immediately start this kind of process. Whereas with music, you can let go of all of that, and that's, I think, why you're able to be with yourself.
But it has also to do with abstraction of music.
Yeah, of course. Which is why opera is less abstract than string quartet.
Exactly. Yes, that's why I always, when someone asks me about what is opera about, I always go first into music. Because it's so much easier to explain where the difference is.
Yeah. If we think about Schubert's, in the second movement of the string quintet, we have a feeling, I mean, nothing is happening, yet at the same time, we have a feeling of pulse that is in a way like a heartbeat. I would almost say it's like a cosmic heartbeat in a sense, because it's got so much more than just a person. And there's these long, long, long notes that feel like eternity, although it's the most pulsative music you can imagine. And that's what made me think that this dimension that we listen to, there's so many of them at the same time when we listen to this piece. And that gives each one of us as a listener, as a player, as better the chance to see a different story or hear a different story of our own, put our own, project our own story, and so on and so forth. We have the possibility to have all these different levels within, and when we read a book or see an opera, there's a story that is already in a way programmed for us. So there's less space. Would you agree?
Of course, because it gives you, it's like a page, and you can write on it, and you can write to the certain extent what you hear, even every day differently, even in every mood differently. And I think Schubert is an amazing example that everything is at the same time. Because when we take the second movement, I mean, you have this let's call it human heartbeat,
Yeah.
this
With the pizzicato and the,
yeah. And then comes
the explosion of
comes
course.
you think already there is someone leaving everything. He's leaving the earth, he's leaving himself, he's like getting loose of everything. And suddenly, full life is there. It's a
Which
fire.
is why I always wonder why people consider Schubert something sort of celestial and let's say spiritual in the sense of lacking how to call it, earthliness, because for me it's always about, it's such human music. There's so much spirit, but there's so much earthliness, there's so much urge, there's so much eroticism, there's so much fight in Schubert. And I feel that so often he's put in this category of this celestial music that is just on a different level, and I think that's not doing him justice. And
no, it's the contrary.
Exactly. No?
Because take the song Ihr Blümlein alle, die sie mir gab, die sollte legen mit mir ins Grab. It's so sad, and it's so melancholic. And in 1 second, then Ihr Blümlein heraus, der Mai ist kommen, it's the most positive and alive again. In one little Schubert song may be played in the countryside with a glass of wine.
Yeah. And it's the same, for example, the C major symphony. The second movement is an explosion of nothing. And if we think about
this is music can do. Music does these things at the same time.
And with music, just for the moment that the mood changes, it can, in 1 second you completely forgot the mood before, and you're in 1 second into a different world. If you read a book, you can't create that feeling as quickly because you depend on the brain of the receptor. And I mean, of course, there's always 50% source, 50% receptor, but at the same time, I think with literature, you depend on what the reader brings to the game, let's say, much more than in music, where the influence on your character, or through the character on your stomach is immediate in a way.
Because that's why you can learn on Schubert what is in general. There is no funny music, there is no sad music. It's what it creates in you. That is what is maybe sadness, or what is.
Which in a way you could say that you already in a way program the experience just as much as the music does. So you bring, yeah. And when you say, I mean, if I think about this piece, it was written basically 2 months before he died. So many people think of this music as sort of, I mean, of him knowing that he's about to die as a sort of a requiem. I mean, we know that he didn't think he was dying when he wrote it, and there's a huge amount of positivity also in the piece. What role do you think does it play, like his own situation, what he thought about, what he meant to write about, his biographical, let's say, situation when he wrote this piece, and how does it matter for us listening to it?
Not at all.
Okay. I agree. Yeah.
No, not at all, because biography is something completely different, and it's important. But only if you look at the last pieces, what comes there. 2 songs, two very famous and so different songs. Heel of den Felsen and Brieftaube. Brieftaube is, I mean, is all about desire. It's all about
and humor.
Humor. And it's like was heißt der Rätsel? Yes, and it's so you never would think that someone in the deathbed is writing this.
And also we know that in the last days before he died, I mean, just before the last explosion of his disease, that he was hoping that he was thinking that he would live longer, because he started taking lessons with some guy who was teaching him counterpoint, because he wanted to write a new symphony that is much more polyphonic than the pieces before. And so in a way, you could imagine that he probably didn't feel any loneliness at all when he wrote this quintet.
Anyway, I think if we talk about biography, Schubert was not a lonely man at all, because I mean it was the most funny, as far as we know, the most funny bunch of friends.
Yeah.
They were doing everything.
They were drunk a lot of the time.
They were drunk. They went to prostitutes. They had fun. So it was a full life. I mean, Schubert was probably, comparing to Schober and to Schring, he was not the most attractive of them, but he was
a little bit sort of let's say, not a little bit awkward.
Yeah, but he was the most talented.
Yeah.
And they knew that also, and that's why he was admired. So I think there is, I mean, and in the beginning, also in the very young songs, you can hear the same mixture of melancholy.
Yeah. It's a little bit, sometimes you see it with Korngold or with Mozart as well, that they come to the world and they're almost done, because you see songs or pieces they write when they're 15 and they're full of all the same, I mean, if you look at Korngold and some of his early music and some of his late music, you could say he didn't develop at all. It was all there in the beginning. And in a way, with Schubert, it's the same. Or Mendelssohn.
Mozart was born when he was 5 years.
Yeah, but so in a way, you feel the same about Mendelssohn when you hear what he wrote when he was 16. It's incredible. And so I always wonder, I mean, how can people that have experienced that, and you know, for example, you think about Mendelssohn, composer that had basically a great life. I mean, he's had such a privileged childhood and wrote about the most incredible sadness. And if you think about Schubert, he's alive, except the fact he died so young. It was not a tragic life. I mean, if he wasn't as successful as he wanted to be, but and then you hear this music, you hear Winterreise, you hear this string quintet, and this is pieces that till today offer people a greater, let's say, consolation and a greater spiritual resonance than most other pieces of art. And it came from somebody who had such a different biography. How do we explain this discrepancy?
I think, first of all, how we treat the biography of Mozart and Schubert and those people, it's completely marketing.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with their life, because basically what you said, in that time, they all were privileged. Yeah. Because they all, first of all, they had the opportunity to do what they wanted to do, yeah, which was already in that time, where mainly, except the noble people, everyone was poor. Yeah, everyone had no food and things. Yeah. So they lived very well. But on the other hand side, and that's why they were genius, is they were busy with the substantial things of life. And that made them struggling, that made them sad, that makes them existential.
But they had access to a level that was bigger or that was higher than what they experienced in their own lives. Exactly. And this access is something not something you learn, it's something that you just have access to.
Yeah, but this is a genius.
Yeah. No, of course I agree. But I find it interesting because I always think, I mean, I agree with you completely. I also resist this as an interpreter, as a conductor, to always think about pieces as a biographical. You know, this is where Mahler's daughter died. I think, or this is where he had a fight with his wife. If it was just about that, it would only be relevant for their lives and not to us 100 years later. But I always ask myself, because in a way, the composers for me are like a filter. In a way, something speaks through them, to the paper, but their life is somehow a filter through these experiences. And you have some feeling that with some composers, their biography plays a big role, with others much less so. But the ability to describe, it's in a way like an actor who's able to describe a feeling or a condition that he's never experienced in a way that makes you absolutely believe him. And is it genius or is it empathy?
Fantasy. I think it's most of the things. I mean, of course, there's no fantasy without empathy, of course. But I mean, think of yourself. It's, of course, it's different how you select, how you feel, whatever is in it, but it's not the important thing for the work. It maybe has an influence if you make a tempo a bit slower or faster, but it's nothing really basic. The basic thing is your talent of making music, or the basic thing of Schubert was his genius.
And what do you feel when you hear this piece?
Freedom.
What else?
Freedom. I couldn't say anything else because it's really freedom is such a complicated word, but I would say being pure, being clean, being without all the daily situations, being myself. That's freedom.
Which in a way is the sublimation of loneliness. Because the moment you've accepted that, you're embracing your aloneness and you're completely in harmony with who you are.
Yes, because it's about confessing. And about daring also.
It's a very daring piece.
Yes.
But it's also daring as a listener and as a player to allow that feeling to happen.
Yes. And it's so radical after the middle section, how he comes back to the heartbeat, which is even more that you see it's really God knocking somewhere and giving you the rhythm or giving you the heartbeat.
But don't you find that some pieces or some composers, you have the feeling that they're communicating something that is about something above us, and others that are communicating something extremely human? And for me, Schubert is such a human composer, Mahler is such a human composer. They're so connected because they're both telling about the human condition, the human journey. Whereas if you think about something like Mozart, regardless of you know, I mean, different phase in his life. It's music that is completely spiritual, and you have the feeling it's about a dimension completely beyond any sort of humanity.
Cannot agree, because I think you're right. In Schubert is completely human, and is completely on earth, and is completely with us, reaching up to the stars, to the sky. The opposite of Schubert, I would say, is Bach, because there is the pure. I mean, if we say it's going directly to feelings with Schubert, I think Bach is really going to the brain.
But not to the spirit.
And Bach is not going, no, but it's really an intellectual.
Of course, totally. But is it a spiritual experience?
No, Mozart is spiritual.
That's what I mean.
Mozart is cosmic.
That's what I meant. That's exactly right.
Mozart is there.
Yeah, Schubert is about the individual.
Yes, exactly.
Thanks so much. Thanks for coming.